Good morning, Geauga County, Lake County, all of northeastern Ohio. You are listening to the Voice of Geauga, where Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. every morning, you will be informed, entertained, and enlightened. And this morning, you've got me, Skip Claypool, with you, and Tim Lennon. Jonathan Broadbent is off campaigning today. He's defending his Central Committee seat. I've never heard of people having to defend their Central Committee seats before. But in fact, he's having to do that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. If you want to call into this program, you can call us at 440 948 9468. 440 948 9468. You can also connect with us on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube, and we are live streaming. And I can see the chats. Good morning to everybody who's
all kinds of things, but I think mostly looks like Skip's back. But
I am back. I apologize for. I think that the Ohioans for Responsible Government are interrupting this program. They're attacking us this morning. And so, but as I was saying earlier, we have a lively group who are probably a lot of them at the polls this morning, doing poll working and that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see who shows up. We'll see if Stu shows up from Cleveland and tries to poke the bear this morning. But with that said, we're going to continue this program. We've got Tim Lennon. I also want to recognize two of our sponsors, Red Eft. Red Eft is an arborist located in Geauga County, but he'll travel throughout northeastern Ohio. Red Eft is an arborist, so he's not just a tree guy. He knows all things plants. He knows diseases and different types of plants, and he's a very, very knowledgeable. That's unbelievable. So it's this is the Verizon. I'm going to go to Starlink here shortly. I'm actually ordering the equipment this week to get something with Elon Musk. It's a little bit more dependable than the Verizon 5G network. But with that said, yeah, I heard you, Tim. I can hear you the whole time we're talking.
Oh, but good. Okay.
We've got Red Eft, who is an arborist, and he's it's fun to watch him work. Actually, I like to watch him climb the trees, take the limbs down. He's like a monkey when he's climbing around all the trees. Scares me actually because I don't know that I was ever able to climb around the trees like he does to take a limb. But he's very safe. And he does a nice job of cleaning up. When he's done, you won't even know that he was there, him and his crew. And so, outstanding arborist. If you
about that, Skip, are you back?
I am back, and I apologize to the audience. Okay. But the other sponsor we have is VFW out of Chardon and Middlefield, and the American Legion out of Chardon and Newberry. And we are grateful to our veterans. For a lot of things, but for also helping out with this program. And by the way, we are looking for other sponsors for this program. If this show is going to continue, then we need people to help pay the freight so that we can stay on the air and talk about all the good things that we do. And I know that there are people who really like this program. I was with a group last night. We had a property tax forum in Middlefield. It was well attended. We had John Mara, Brian Massey, and John Plechnik. And I will be posting that video on Voice of Geauga website so everybody can benefit from the
government is that the sky is going to fall if we do make any government is that the sky is going to fall if we do make any type of change, which is just not true. So I think it is very important for people to inform themselves and get out and hear the possibilities of what change would look like. Skip, are you back?
I am back, and again, okay. This is going to get very frustrating, but I have no control over it. So, Tim, you do a real good job. I can hear you the whole time.
Oh, good.
And so, okay. I'm assessing your skill. You should just be a regular on this program.
I'm just trying to fill in here. So I know the only thing I know about radio is you don't want dead air. That is probably the number one rule.
Well, and you're very good at filling that dead air. You've got a line of bull that's a mile long, and so there's absolutely no issues. I'm glad I invited you on today. But like I said, this property tax forum was on last night, and I'll let everybody listen to it. And the point I want to make is the three panelists are true experts. We've got a mayor from a city in Cleveland, John Mara, out of Timberlake. John Plechnik, who is a county commissioner. He's also an attorney professor. He's also a tax professor, so he understands tax law and
better
and
than
and
anybody.
can speak to it directly. I mean, you can't,
Yeah.
but you can't debate with John and succeed because he knows the taxes inside and out. As a county commissioner, he has to manage the county's budget, so he understands the inner workings of government directly because he does it all the time. So
Mhm.
John has just a wealth of knowledge and expertise. And then Brian Massey, who's an accountant, retired accountant. I mean, the panel couldn't be have better credentials up
Mhm.
against a township trustee who may or may not have any business experience. Maybe you got a bricklayer for a county commissioner. People who try to have a logical discussion or an intellectual discussion with these three guys would have a challenge. And it's really unfortunate, I think, that a lot of the folks that attend the League of Women Voters, who is not a fair and balanced organization, they claim to be nonpartisan, but
Yeah. Disappointing.
they have a one-sided forum on the property tax issue. I'm really disappointed we can't get these two together and have for the sake of the citizens, as we're trying
Right.
to sort through this discussion, let's have an active, real debate. Let's talk about both sides. We've got both sides of the coin. I get it
Yeah.
that some of the elected officials think that the sky is going to fall if we don't have property taxes to pay for everything. And we
Mhm.
have a group of panelists who have a different view of that, and I've been greatly educated by a lot of what they've had to say. And so it's too bad we can't get them together so we can have a real robust party. That's what our republic and our democracy is all about. And
Well,
so,
it's just jump in there, Skip. Unfortunately, it's become if that's not what it's about right now. And I think what, at least from my opinion, and this goes all the way from local government all the way to the top, is the institutions insulating themselves with our resources and protecting themselves with it to keep at bay. And that's really what I've witnessed, say probably in the last 10 years or so. Is it's not to say it hasn't always been like that to some extent, but obviously there's been a lot more sunlight put on it, so people are witnessing it more. But I think the intensity of that is also ratcheted up as you see, the and I just don't quite understand the mentality. I don't know if it's just something where it gets baked in with these elected officials. Maybe they go in with the best of intentions, but as they spend more time and more terms, especially like say in Congress where they're there every 2 years running for reelection, so on and so on. You see that they really stray away and become almost an adversary to the very people who put them in office.
well,
So,
it's interesting, Tim, because you and I served as county commissioners together.
yep,
During that term, when you and I were county commissioners together, we actually saved $500,000 by shutting down the county home. and
yeah,
and we did other things that saved money. We were always focused on doing things cost effectively. I'm not so
yep,
sure that two of the county commissioners that are in there today even think about that.
no,
They say those things, but then you watch their actions and some of the things that they vote on, some of the actions they take, and it doesn't
yeah,
indicate that they really care about the taxpayers or the voters much. I mean, they,
and
they shut
obviously,
shut down free speech.
yeah.
So,
Sorry to speak over you. Obviously, the county commissioners are kind of the front facing of the county towards the public. I always said they're kind of the hood ornament. But the drumbeat is coming now, specifically from Geauga County, for example, and you can take this across the state and across the country. But the mentality and the drumbeat is the revenue is directly correlated to spending, which we all know in the real world, our households or a company or a small business. You don't spend every last dime that you make. Who in the world does that? That's just not good practice, and it just doesn't make common sense. But for government, it's directly correlated. So as the budgets and collection go up, which we all know has gone skyrocketing for many different reasons, but the big one on the table right now is property tax. Property tax went up 30%. across the board almost in Geauga County, sometimes even higher in Geauga County. So the correlation to the spending should be just because the revenue collection, which I've always argued has been way, way, way too high. We're doing the exact same thing we did 10 years ago today. We haven't taken on any new. I see we got 30 seconds coming up here, but the 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 correlation is direct, and the drumbeat from our budget commission in Geauga County is to spend. They don't care about saving it; they care about spending
Yeah,
it
and with
and
that
making sure
said,
it gets
Tim,
out the
let
door.
me take us into the break,
Yeah.
and we'll be going over to our social media crowd and talking over through the break. But we'll see you on the other side of the break. Okay, to all the people that are on line, I see we have some folks showing up. We have a few that are probably working at the polls today. If Jonathan is listening, I don't know if he's listening over the radio or if he's listening on the live stream. Jonathan, you could call in if you've got some time today, and be a part of the program. I see some comments to the social media group that's out there: Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Um, Jonathan is saying, click the like button, share the Voice of Geauga message, get the word out. We need our numbers up outside of sponsors, which you can help us to find sponsors, get some funding to keep the radio program going and keep our Voice of Geauga newspaper going. And I got a lot of positive comments on the paper last night.
Oh yeah.
But I'm only getting some negative from the establishment folks who just hate when we put out the truth.
I love it.
it,
I
it
love it.
it is just
It's been
infuriating.
fantastic, Skip. It's been fantastic, and I tell you, I've heard so many positive things over the last couple months. But really, everyone I've talked to is wants this to continue. So I think it is important if you enjoy this to make sure you express that by your likes and subscriptions, and then also sponsors. I don't know if there's a better bang for your buck out there to reach 40,000 households for such a nominal amount. So I truly believe in it, and I'd like to be help participate going forward, making sure this thing continues.
So we've got a comment. One of the comments on social media is the Chardon Library Taj Mahal plan should be nixed, and the spending is out of control at the library. So if you look at the number one spending, this came out of the property tax forum last night. The number one spender in the state of Ohio is libraries, and it's unbelievable. And so And welcome back. You are listening to the Voice of Geauga. This morning we have Jonathan Broadbent is off doing the political thing. He's out campaigning for himself for a central committee seat, which is pretty unheard of. If central committees are the representatives for the various parties, so the GOP or Republican Party has a central committee that kind of guides what happens for the party in a county, and the Democratic Party has their own central committee, and they game plan and do support candidates and do all the good things that they need to do in order to be able to promote their side of things. I'm not sure where they're holding the Communist Party meetings today, but that's I guess that's over on 87. But that's a joke to all you Democrats out there. Come on, Stu. I don't see you out there, but that's a joke. In any case, yeah, that's what the central committees are, and there's representative from every precinct. Jonathan, I'm on the central committee. Tim's on the central committee. Jonathan is running to be on the central committee, and this dark money group, believe it or not, is putting a ton of money into defeating Jonathan Broadbent, a lowly central committee member in Geauga County. You know why they would do that? They just hate it when people stand up for conservative values. There is a group that's Ohioans for Responsible Government, and we're connecting the dots on them. They're a pretty shady, dishonest, dishonorable group, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
I have a
Jonathan's
pretty
out
good
there
feeling.
today.
I have a pretty good feeling I know who it is, but I won't say.
So I've got Tim Lennon on with me today, former county commissioner. He and I spent 4 years together trying to get things in order for the county, and then he had Jim Dvorak take my place, and he had to try to work through that situation with Ralph
Yeah.
Spitaleri. But Jonathan had made the comment to the social media crowd: press the like button, um, spread the word about Voice of Geauga, so we can get our numbers up and monetize our social media sites and so on and so forth. We were talking about the property tax forum last night. We had a group in Middlefield that was educating people on this particular issue, so we can try to get um, inform our citizenry so they can make better decisions. And but why that's important is we've got election today is election day, and we've got a number of candidates running for the election today and across the whole state of Ohio. But here in Geauga County and in Lake County, in Geauga County, we're closer to who the candidates are. So Steve Olowich, veteran and former employee of the county, is running against Jim Dvorak, long-term county commissioner, 8-year term county commissioner. And so that's been a pretty active race. There's a lot of signs going out on the side of the street. We've got Joe DeBoth running against Chuck Walder for the auditor seat. And Joe DeBoth wants to kind of change the dynamics in the auditor's office, maybe make it a little bit more focused on being responsible with taxpayer dollars.
Transparent.
That's what
Yeah.
his mantra is as a candidate. And Steve Olich wants to get rid of the status quo. In other words, if you look at some of what happened, and we've talked about it on this program, this is not a secret, about the current commissioners Brakey and Dvorak kind of limiting citizen input. Kellen Brakey has made the comment, well, we're more transparent. I got cameras in the office. Well,
And a policy. She came up with a new
a new policy.
policy.
When you
Yeah.
and I were as county commissioners, Tim, the policy was if somebody has a question, they ask it, and
That's
they
right.
can go on and on until we decided that they had spoken enough. And normally they run out of steam after a little while, and so there was
Yeah.
no limitation in terms of how long
No.
somebody could speak.
Or how
Citizens,
many people? How many
that's
people? I
right.
mean, if we had to sit there all morning and into the afternoon to hear what people had to express, I mean, we always tried our best to answer their questions as honestly as we could. And if we didn't have the answer, we said we don't have the answer. So, but it just because there's a policy in place, and like you said, now that there's cameras shining on her face every morning, doesn't mean that the policy is more open to the public. So and really what I saw was the initial policy that they had put in place, which was so. But then, as they were getting more and more criticism coming in over the last few months, they tightened that policy up to the point where only, I think, 3 or 5 people are allowed to speak now for a total of 3 minutes, which, um, to me, what's why the limitations? Just if 10 people show up that morning and want to discuss something, obviously if they get belligerent, obviously if they get rude and obnoxious, the president of the board has every right as the president of the board to act like the president of the board and shut the meeting down. Right now, the president of the board in Geauga County Commissioner's office is Jim Dvorak, believe it or not. You couldn't tell by going to a commissioner's meeting or watching a county commissioner's meeting because he doesn't act like the president of the board. He lets Carolyn Brakey, who's not the president of the board, run the meetings, which if I were there and as the president still, I would politely tell her to zip it because I'm running the meeting. So, but that said, I think that's what you were getting at with and how important it today is. So if you have not voted yet, please, Geauga County and Lake County and Ohio, there's some very important um, elections out there. And for the first time in a long time, I think, Skip, you might remind me, um, what um, what do you think about the challengers? I think there's a good group of challengers this year. Finally, for once, it's just not a bunch of um, uncontested races. So, what do you think of the? There's for Congress this year. I believe there's there's some challengers, there's judges running. I mean, there's lots of other races going on too.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There are challenges for across the board, which I think is a good thing. That tests the
Yeah.
mettle of the people in office, kind of keeps them honest a little bit. So you see Nikki Frenchko running against Dave Joyce, and say what you will about Nikki Frenchko, but she is a lot of fun to watch. She's a personality. She's very smart and very quick on her feet, knows the issues inside and out. And Dave Joyce typically goes to his funders campaign activities, but he's not out and about with citizens trying to meet citizens and find out what's important to them, and then like some of the votes that he's taken, the red flag laws and the January 6th committee and that kind of stuff were not popular decisions, and they're he's not out finding out what his constituents really think are important. But Nikki Frenchko has been all over the place. She's in every county. She has no money,
Yeah.
so she's been
Yeah.
struggling. So it's a fun race to watch, and
Yeah.
we'll see where it goes. I mean, Dave Joyce is, of course, well entrenched, has a lot of money and
Mhm.
big dollars supporters. So she's got
But
a tough
Skip, like
race, but it's fun
we
to
were
watch.
talking. Sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to chime in there, and that kind of brings me back to, as elected officials get in there, and they're in there for 4, 8, 12, 16 years, so on and so on. The only time you really see them pop their head up is around election time, and unfortunately, that just kind of becomes I don't know if they're trying to avoid some of the rocks and arrows, and they just don't like having to deal with the public, maybe asking them tough questions, or maybe attacking them. Obviously, nobody likes to be attacked, but part of your job and the paycheck you receive is to answer people's questions and concerns, even if they may seem completely off base to you, but you do need to address them. You can't hide from it. And unfortunately, I've seen quite a few of the elected officials that seem as though they withdraw from the public until it's time to now run for election again. If you got a bunch of money and one candidate doesn't have a bunch of money, the one that has a bunch of money, it's real easy. You just throw a bunch of money out there to smear your opponents, and let the strategists do the job and the speaking for you. And you still don't have town hall meetings. You still don't interact with the public. And unfortunately, the masses of the public, without being informed voters, seem to do the same thing they've done year after year in the voting booth. I just got a funny text message from a former county commissioner. I won't mention his name because I didn't tell him, but he just texted me when he was talking about transparency and speaking at meetings. And
Hey,
Skip,
Tim, why don't you
yeah,
hold on to that for
yeah,
the other side of the break? We're coming up
yeah,
on a break, and we'll be
yeah.
going over to our social media crowd, and we're going to have Tim when we come back from the break. Continue with that text message he just got and his explanation. So we'll see you on
Yeah.
the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
All right. Thanks for the wow. Our numbers are down on Rumble today. We must have a lot of people working at the polls.
They're all
Um,
out voting.
they're
Yep.
out voting today, and Jonathan, anybody that's working at the polls, and you could be having your earbuds in listening to this program. I know Jonathan is listening to the program, so feel free to call in. I know um, the polling process is you're trying to meet a lot of people, and as people are coming in to vote, and this is a hot time. Right after this program, actually, I'm going to go vote because I haven't voted yet.
Yep.
But
Yep.
and then I've got to put some signs in for Nikki. I tried to put some signs in at Mayfield Church last night, but there was a huge crowd of people and kids at Mayfield Church until late last night. I don't know what that was about, but I couldn't drive down the driveways because of all the cars and the people and stuff. So
Huh.
I don't know what was happening at Mayfield Church last night, but whatever it was had a lot of people.
Okay.
But
Well,
today
that's good.
is really important for the people who are on this program or listening to Facebook. Regardless of the county you're in, whether it's Cuyahoga County, Lake County, or Geauga County, get out and vote.
Yeah.
We have some contentious races. Our judge races for the probate court is a contentious race. We'll talk about that when we come back from break a little bit. And we have this dark money coming into our county trying to distort the political process, and that's very concerning to me.
Mhm.
So,
You know,
but
and Skip, I think maybe just who I am, but I always kind of look at the underdog a little closer. You know, I kind of like change, especially in government. So I'm always looking for new candidates that come up and challenge. I don't like, you know, when they hang out. Um, I don't like when they hang out in office forever in careers. You know, I served 2 terms, which I think was plenty. I mean, obviously, I could have probably kept going on and on and on. And not to say some elected officials don't do a great job, you know, for many many years for their community and so on and so on. But I think it becomes it's just so stagnant and so status quo is the best way to put it. And I believe in term limits all the way down to county government. And I know it's hard to find people to run, but I think if there was that type of incentivized turnover, you just have by nature more people running for these positions, and maybe get some qualified different perspectives, other than just this establishment kind of where they camp out, or this is like a retirement. Like we have certain individuals who've sold their business, they've made some money, and now they're just going to camp out and go off into the sunset with huge retirement packages, huge health benefit packages, and it's really not about doing the job anymore. And I mean, if you look across the board, you I mean, we've become extremely stagnant, um, in many, many, many different positions. So I think if people are going to go out and vote, it's easy to get information today on these candidates. But I think to my opinion, is get out and take a real good look at the new challengers. I think they bring a lot to the position just from a fresh perspective. It's good to get change in there. 30 seconds. And so I think that's just my thoughts. Is I unless they're completely way off base, I like to lean towards the new blood.
well, we have so many people that are job hopping.
Mm-hmm.
So our Secretary of State seat is that we've got one. And welcome back. You are listening to the Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool and Tim Lennon. Jonathan Broadbent is out campaigning today. We miss him. His eloquence. Tim and I are really good talkers. Not quite as eloquent as John Broadbent. I get it. He spends a lot of
Not
time.
polished.
Yeah,
We're not
we're not
polished.
as polished. We're much more straightforward, much more blue collar. He's white collar, and so maybe people appreciate that. We were just talking about the races. Tim was talking before we went on to the break about a text message he had got
Oh
from
yeah.
a county commissioner. So I want you to
So
continue
we
that.
were just, to backtrack real quick, we were talking about the policies and public input and transparency of office, and as we all know, there's been a lot of contention around our Geauga County Commissioners' uh, new policies they've put in place. Particularly, it's Carolyn Brakey, the new commissioner. This is what she stumped on, is transparency and access to government, and which are all very important and great things. And I'm not against policies. I mean, policies are good, depending on what the policy is. Just because you make a policy doesn't mean you give yourself a pat on the back. The policy, I think, in Geauga County has become more and more restrictive over the last few months because there's been some pushback from the public, and the public has been wanting to get into those rooms to express themselves, not only asking questions, which they haven't been getting answers. And I'll tell you, that's one thing I'm just extremely frustrated watching a couple of these meetings, and just the contention and the rude behavior from our current county commissioner, Brakey, in particular. and really Jim Dvorak, who just sits there with his doesn't answer really. I mean, every once in a while he'll respond, but what what people and I think you'll know this too as a township trustee, Skip, was, I mean, there were meetings that may have lasted 5 hours. I mean, 6 hours. You know, there was meetings, and maybe those aren't extremely productive for our staff or for the township trustees that have other things to do. But this is what they're getting paid to do. The public would come in, and there was meetings that would last, for hours and hours, trying to answer the questions best. Now, if you're going to put restriction on that and say, no, 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 only three people can talk for 3 minutes. It's got to be on this subject and this subject alone. And we're not even going to answer your question. You can just get up there and flap your gums for 3 minutes, and then we're going to move on because we're important and we have important things to do. Okay. Well, I don't agree with that sentiment. And I know this Commissioner Brakey has gotten a lot of heat. I mean, she has been, and I don't know if it's just a personality flaw or if it's truly how she feels about the public, but there has been some strict, just disdain towards people that have questioned her, and it's very confrontational, which it shouldn't be confrontational at all. People are just wanting answers, and if they come in and seem confrontational, which, Skip, you'll remember, we had plenty of people come up there, throwing around wild accusations, and you do your best to answer them, or you just tell them flat out, I don't know. But that's what the township trustee was saying to me is, listen, go across this county, or in probably any county in this state, and you'll see the township trustees do their best to interact with the public. They are where the rubber meets the road, and it is their job. That is what they're getting these big paychecks to sit there. Not the township trustees so much, but county commissioners are making almost $100,000 a year, believe it or not, plus benefits, plus insurance, plus everything. It's probably a $250,000 package when you're said and done each. So I to spend a couple hours once a week, is not asking too much.
So
And
no,
I appreciate that trustee chiming in and bringing that up, because that is so true.
yeah, I got a comment. If people, um, I got a comment from one of our listeners that the audio dropped out. I think maybe it was on their side. But back to the candidates here for a second. That we've got an important election going on right now as we speak. And unfortunately, there's some seats, the appeals court judge seat and the Supreme Court seat in the state of Ohio. Nobody knows the judges well, and so I get all kinds of phone calls. I got a number last night after the property tax forum, asking me what I thought about the judge races. And so you've got a contentious race between Marisa Cornacchio out of Lake County and Dave Engler, who is actually out of Trumbull County. Now, Geauga County citizens don't know them because they're not from our county. But Dave Engler has spent a lot of time, and I've not seen Cornacchio at all at any event in Geauga County. So Engler has been spending a lot of time going around to the various counties, getting to know people. He's been on this program. We reached out to Cornacchio to ask her if she wanted to come on the program, and we got crickets. But so I'm a fan of Dave Engler because at least he's showing up. He's a little bit like
Right.
Nikki Frenchko. She's showing up and she's participating. She wants you to know what she thinks so that you can judge her. Now, whether you vote for her or not is another thing, but at least they're
But that
showing
goes,
up and they're not
Skip, that
afraid.
goes a long way. That goes a long way in my book. If you just, if making the effort, to me, goes a long way. And to go back to what we were just talking about, with you were just mentioning that Judge Carnarcione. I I have never met her, never seen her, never. I have not seen her at any events that I've attended, but she's spending a lot of money. She's spending a lot of money and got a lot of pretty flyers out there. But that's what I was saying. And we see it in this congressional race too. There's the grassroots versus the big money polished race, and it's really easy to spend money. It's hard to go out there and bust some shoe leather and get people to vote for you. So that to me is a big indicator of somebody that really is invested in trying to earn your vote.
Well, and then let me point out the Jim Dvorak, Steve Olovich situation. So the Democratic Party, the GOP, had a candidates night, and none of the establishment, what I call the establishment candidates, showed up to the GOP, the Republican candidates night. Steve Olovich showed up. He was there, put himself out, allowed people to ask him questions, and some people asked him some pretty hard questions. Jim Dvorak didn't show up. He sent a representative to that event. Now they weren't the only ones. Chuck Waller didn't show up. The
Hey,
Judge
Jacob.
Kay Jacob didn't show up. So, but they showed up at the League of Women Voters event because the League of Women Voters event is controlled. They screen the questions, and they ask questions that are posed, ones that
Very
they
friendly,
that are
very friendly scripted questions
yeah.
that they've already pre-submitted. They pre-submitted.
And they're very, in my opinion, they lean toward the establishment folks, and so that's the venue that the establishment candidates went to. Now that sends a message. As a citizen, you want people who are bare knuckle politicians who are willing to mix it up and get out there and answer questions, not afraid of the public, and
An
and
individual who will stand on their own and not have to hitch their wagon to somebody else to drag them across the finish line.
Yep. And so say what you will about me. I am not reserved in what I feel and what I think, and I put it out there for everybody to, I expose myself. And so you may like me, you may not like me. That's okay. I don't care. What I do care about is that I test the system a little bit to make sure that it is the best that we can be. The other seat is the Supreme Court justice seat, and that's a tougher race. Um, my favorite person in that race is Jill Lenziger, but I listened to Jill and Colleen O'Donnell at the recent Cuyahoga County GOP event. Ron Lewis and Andrew King weren't there, I don't believe. But between the two of them, Colleen has got a reputation for being a little bit more progressive, less conservative, and Jill is a very solid conservative. So that's my read on that, right or wrong. The race, Jay Edwards versus Christina Roger. Jay Edwards was part of the group of 32 or whatever, the Republicans that threw the Republican Party under the bus and helped to pick a speaker that was friendly with the Democratic Party. So
Yeah.
Christina Rogner is a very solid conservative senator, and so she's my favorite person. And we got Marcel Sturbridge against Robert Sprague. Not saying anything bad about Robert Sprague, but he's just a position hopper. He just pops from position to position. And Marcel
Talk about
Sturbridge,
establishment. That is the establishment protecting itself right there.
yeah, and Marcel Sturbridge is a veteran, a newbie on the scene. He wants to make positive change, get voter integrity. That's his hot button issue, voter integrity. And we have voter issues. I'm sorry, our system is not. We have issues from a voter integrity standpoint, and so I'd like to see somebody in there that's going to clean up that system a little bit. And I've experienced personally the downfall to some of that.
He was big on big on going back to voting the way it should have been and it used to be, before pre-COVID and all that, he's going to get rid of the drop boxes and just the potential for shenanigans, and get to a single ID type voting. In Ohio we do fairly good job compared to some other states for sure, but there are still things that need to be changed. So I know Marcel, and he's a big proponent for taking some hard line, making some hard decisions, and making it a lot more strict process. So I agree with you on that.
Well, in the property tax forum last night, it was really interesting. You'll have to go to Voice of Geauga and listen to the video after today. They made it clear that the establishment is really trying to protect itself. And we've had a state senator, Ron Young, who was down there one time, and he made a speech. And in that, he said that elected officials had two jobs: to protect their position and to get reelected.
That's right.
And somewhere in that discussion wasn't watching out for the taxpayer dollars or watching out and doing what's right, regardless of how it impacts you personally. And so with that said, we're coming up on the break. We're going to talk more about this on the other side of the break. Believe it or not, this program is just blowing by. So we'll be talking to you on the other side of the break. I'm assuming, Thomas, that the mics are off. It's been a little while, so I didn't hear you
Thanks for
say I didn't hear you say anything, Thomas. So hopefully you're still with us. Um,
Thomas, our
and
mic's
so
off.
and so the we're talking to our social media crowd right now, Rumble,
Yep.
Facebook, and YouTube. And so
Well, talking about that real quick, I've had a lot of people. I mean, it's surprising how many people listen to your show, Skip. I mean, a lot. I've had so many people come up and comment, and I was actually just surprised. They're like, "Oh yeah, I heard you. Blah blah blah. You were on the show, and I'm like, really? It's just kind of funny. Like people you wouldn't suspect that are listening. You know what I mean? So it's. I think you're doing a great job, and you and Jonathan both. And again, I'd like to see this continue beyond the election, and I think it has every opportunity and possibility to do that. And if I can, I'd like to help and be a partner any way I can, and getting helping and find additional sponsors too.
well, anybody that's listening on social media, if you have an interest in taking part either in the paper or on this radio station, let us know if you'd like to be on the radio station, be a host. We're more than open to that. To mix things up a little bit, adds interest, new voices,
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
sort of thing. All right, welcome back. You are listening to the voice of Geauga. If you'd like to take part in this conversation, you can call us at 440 946 9468. You can also message us on Facebook, Rumble, or YouTube. We are watching our messages come in. We've got a lot of messaging coming on. We're not talking about all of those, but we are talking about the election, candidates, and the political establishment in general. And particularly on election day today, it's so important that everybody get out and vote and pick the right people. Tim and I will tell you the right people to vote for here shortly. That's a joke.
Yeah.
We've kind of had a little bit of a leaning in some of the conversations that we've had there. But the one race we haven't talked about is the auditor race, and I know there are a number of us who are concerned about the auditor's budget and being out of control, particularly with ADP.
Oh,
And so we've got Joe DeBoth running, who has a lot of experience, financial experience in the corporate world, and his take on things is that he is going to do a better job from a transparency standpoint, and also in managing the finances of the county. And I will say, there's been a lot of talk about the ADP recently in the news. You see it in the Maple Leaf, Chagrin Valley Times. We've had a story in the Voice of Geauga about the ADP. And so the one thing that I know, I'm an IT guy by background. That's what I did for a number of decades. And we have a resident who just reached out to me. He and I worked together on a contract years ago. I didn't know he lived in Geauga County. We just had a conversation about this. IT departments, generally speaking, should be in the background. You don't even know they exist. They do their job. If there's viruses or intrusion attacks or whatever, they take care of it because that's what they do. That's their job. And the corporate, they might report to the corporate management about situations so that the corporate management's aware of, if you've got this huge issue with viruses or, um, some intrusion attacks of some kind, they might report to the management about that. And the management being the board, ADP board right now. But you shouldn't even know they exist. Shutting down email or a domain for a police department, which our ADP did, is unheard of. It's it's
mhm.
it's irresponsible from an IT organizational standpoint because it's their job to make sure that those things don't happen because you have tools and software and servers and switches and all kinds of things that you put into place to make sure you don't have issues. If you have an issue, that's a breakdown of your organization. But in our case, the auditor has used that as a badge of honor. Oh, we stopped, 1,000 intrusion attacks from China. Well, guess what? I got 10,000 yesterday, and I'm managing on my websites that I'm managing to thwart those. And so that's a real issue when you watch what's happening in the news media. about the auditor's office and the ADP, that we're using those as press opportunities, and making a big deal for the public as though that's a badge of honor. It's not. That's a failure in my viewpoint.
Yeah,
Same thing when we're not. You see a lot of press around things like a certain judge's bills not being paid. Well, the judge is an elected official and has a right within his budget to manage his budget. And so I'm mind boggled at why the auditor's office would interfere with an elected official's right to be able to pay his bills.
yeah.
And so that
And
whole thing is
a lot of
confusing.
these
So
townships are starting to walk away from this ADP. So, because there's just been you know, listen, we don't need to recreate an IT business within government. That is not what we were elected to do. Yes, part of your job is to go out and get the protection for the county, and a lot of that is done through contracting. Which, in my opinion, we don't need to make another layer of bureaucracy to enter into those contracts. That's what the county commissioners do on a daily basis, is enter into contracts. So, there's different ways to skin a cat to get those type of services. But again, like you said, you don't get to pat yourself on the back for getting up out of bed this morning. Like and that's really what I've seen a lot of, tooting their own horns for very non-consequential type things. But beyond that, what I have witnessed this auditor do, specifically Chuck Walter and some of his staff, is to weaponize IT. They've used that to basically berate and to cudgel every other township, police department, fire department, township trustees, other departments into getting under their umbrella, and thus creating another revenue source, which seems just so ridiculous. It's like we're collecting more, the round. It's taking money out of your right pocket and put it in your left pocket so they can spend it. And I've heard through the grapevine, we've got directors of the IT making overtime who are already making fat cat salaries, like they're out there in the real world, which there are not set positions that are making that type of money with benefits like that. I can just assure you right now. So we've got a huge number of employees over the last 4 or 5 years in underneath Chuck Walter. It's been an explosion for the county as far as spending goes. Really, the rest of the county has stayed, pretty within, plus or minus 3%. Well, there's been no minus, but just very incremental increases. But not Chuck Walter. He's been a big spender, and it's kind of refreshing to see somebody step up and challenge him, just out of and I'll just be candid. There's lots of people who wanted me to run against him just to get him out. His own employees were calling me, wanting me to run against him. So, but it's refreshing that the public has noticed. Joe DeBoth is not, I would call, a political insider by any stretch of the imagination. But he recognized that there's been something wrong with this consistent presentation being put out by Chuck Walter and his office. And if you look and see about every uh, legal challenge or fight going on within county government that's costing the county millions, and I mean millions of dollars in outside legal costs, who's at the center of all those issues? Chuck Walter. Chuck Walter's been at the center of all of them. And the newspaper doesn't like to report the after the dust is settled, but he's been found wrong on many of those things, almost to a point, probably close to 90%. The state auditor has smacked him down multiple times on his findings, and that's what Joe DeBoth has actually found under his own research. And so there's been a lot of issues going on in this auditor's office that they're trying to present, a pretty picture to the public, like of all the things that they're doing. But I think people are starting to kind of see through the veneer and see that this might not be as rosy as he's putting it. But they have surely spent a ton of money, and that's really where the explosion has gone. And the townships, they've been forced basically to get on board with ADP over the last few years, and the police departments and the fire department, because they're saying if you don't go with us, well, guess what? We're just going to cut you off like a dead limb, and you're not going to have access to the network, or you're not going to have access to this or that. So it's, and then they'll do this roundabout, like saying, well, if you don't join, like the park districts, oh, you're wasting money, or you're this, or you're unsecure because you're not with us. It's a complete control freak type mentality. And I hope Joe got into this race a little late, but I can assure you, people, if you have not voted yet, take a look at Joe DeBuff. He is super experienced. He is going to make things truly transparent. I've talked to him, and get back to conducting business as it should be. We're not in the business of providing technical support or help desk tickets across the county that go unanswered for weeks on end. There are
Hey,
professional
hey,
companies out
hey,
there.
Tim,
Yep.
I've got to interrupt because we're coming up on the
Yep.
end of the program. I just wanted to say as we're closing the program out today, good luck to Jonathan Broadbent, to the rest of you out there that are listening to this program. Get out and vote today. Your vote makes a difference. Thanks for listening to this program. Support us. And elections have consequences, and we need good people to be elected. Government never shrinks; it always grows, and that's another topic for another day. But we really appreciate all of our listeners on both sides. Everybody that agrees with us, everybody that disagrees with us. We like to have a diverse set of opinions, and we ask that you weigh in. So we appreciate listening to the program today, and we'll come back tomorrow after the election, and we'll talk about that. Have a good day.